A very good morning, students. In such a bright morning, let's begin to learn science. So, students, today we will be continuing learning Lesson 1 Living World and Classification of Microbes. In a previous lecture, we had learnt about various criteria used for the classification of organisms. In this lecture, we will be learning the five kingdom system of classification. Now, we know students, living organisms are classified on the basis of various criteria. The very first criteria used for the classification was complexity of cell structure. So, considering the first criteria, here in the flow chart, you can see living organisms are divided into two parts. The first one is prokaryotes and the second one is eukaryotes. Moving further in the flow chart, we can see prokaryotes are unicellular. Students, we have learned what does unicellular means. Single cell organisms. So, prokaryotes means are the organisms which do not have well-defined nucleus and they are of single cell, that means unicellular. So students, according to such conditions, first kingdom comes here and the kingdom name is Monera. Kingdom 1, Monera. What does Monera mean? Monera is a Greek word derived from the word single. So students, it's very much clear now. Organisms which are prokaryotes, that is, they do not have a well-defined nucleus and they are made up of single cell, comes under the first kingdom system of classification, and that is kingdom Monera. Next comes the eukaryotes. Eukaryotes are again divided into two, that is unicellular and multicellular. And in unicellular, second kingdom system of classification is kept, and that is kingdom Protista. Second system of classification is kingdom Protista. Now students, what does Protista mean and why it is kept under eukaryotes that are unicellular? The word protists means single-celled eukaryotes which are organisms with a nucleus. So students, understand it. What does it saying? They are eukaryotes, but they have been kept under unicellular. So protist means single cell organism. Hence they are placed under unicellular because unicellular means single cell. Though they are unicellular, they are having a nucleus in them. And in kingdom Monera, what was it? They were prokaryotes and they were also unicellular, but they were not having a well-defined nucleus. Hence, they were placed under prokaryotes. And in kingdom Protista, they are eukaryotes because they have a well-defined nucleus and they have well-defined nucleus, but they are of single cell. Hence, they are placed under eukaryotes that are unicellular and kingdom Protista comes here. Now students, we can see the second term of eukaryotes is multicellular. First of all, we know students, multicellular means organisms made up of many cells. So, our next three kingdom, that is kingdom 3 fungi, kingdom 4 plantae and kingdom 5 is animalia, comes under the condition that is eukaryotes and multicellular. So, kingdom fungi, kingdom plantae and kingdom animalia are eukaryotes and multicellular organism. Let's see how they differ from each other one by one. The first one, kingdom fungi. Students, fungi are the organisms that can't perform photosynthesis. For their food, they are dependent on others. And what other? They are dependent on dead organic matter. Absorption from dead organism are the mode of nutrition in fungi. And in fungi, cell wall is present. Kingdom 4, Plantae. They are the organism that can perform photosynthesis and prepare their own food. And in this also cell wall is present. In kingdom 5, that is Animalia, no cell wall is present. The cells of this kingdom do not have a cell wall, and they are the organisms which cannot prepare their own food, but for their food they are dependent on others. Now let's name all the 5 kingdoms together. Kingdom 1, Monera. Kingdom 2, Protista. Kingdom 3, Fungi. Kingdom 4, Plantae. And the last one, that is Kingdom 5, is Animalia. Now let's study each in detail. The very first kingdom, that is Kingdom Monera. We learned, student, what does Monera mean? Monera is a Greek word derived from the word single. So students, in this kingdom, all the organisms will be of single cell. So students, to see organisms from kingdom Monera, there is an activity. What's the activity? Take a small drop of curd or buttermilk on a clean glass slide. Dilute it with a little water. Carefully keep a cover slip. Observe it under high power of compound microscope. Students, what we have to do it here? We have to take a small drop of curd on the slide. Curd means dahi, students. And after taking a drop of curd on the slide, we have to dilute it with a little water. We have to make in a liquid form. Afterwards, keep a cover slip on it. And then we have to observe it under high power of compound microscope. What did you see, students? Do you know? What are you going to see? Students, when you will observe it under a microscope, you will see such kind of small rod-like microbes, and they all are moving, and they are lactobacilli bacteria. The name of the bacteria is lactobacilli, and it is placed under kingdom Monera. So students, what we will be seeing? Moving small rod-like microbes are lactobacilli bacteria, and all type of bacteria and blue-green algae are included in the kingdom Monera. So let's see the characteristics of the kingdom Monera. The first one, all the organisms are unicellular. That is, organisms are of single cell. Second, they may be autotrophic or heterotrophic. That means some organisms can prepare their own food, and heterotrophic cannot prepare their own food. They will be depending for food on others. Third characteristic is these are prokaryotic cells without distinct nucleus or cell organelles. Let's see pictures of various organisms from kingdom Monera. In this image, you can see how various organisms of kingdom Monera looks. Some of the examples are Streptococcus pneumonia. Second, Salmonella typhi, Legionella pneumonia, and Vibrio cholerae. Here are some of the pictures of various organisms, how they look. Moving to the next kingdom, that is kingdom 2, Protista. Students, we had learned in a flowchart what does protist means. Protists are single-celled eukaryotes, which are organisms with a nucleus. Now, there is an activity to see various organisms of kingdom Protista. What is the activity, student? Prepare a temporary mount of 1 drop of pond water on a glass slide. Observe it under low power and high power of microscope. It is very easy, students. You have to take 1 drop of water from a pond and you have to place it on a glass slide. And after it, you have to just observe it under a low power or high power of microscope. What you will see, students? You will find some motile microbes with irregular shape. These are amoeba. What does motile mean, students? Motile means moving. An organism which is moving is known as motile. So students, when you will observe the pond water under the microscope, you will find various organisms moving and they also have irregular shape. They are motile microbes with irregular shape and one of the example is amoeba. Students, this is how amoeba looks under a microscope. When you will place the slide of pond water under the microscope, you will find a irregular shape motile microbe and that is amoeba. Now, let's learn the characteristics of kingdom Protista. First one, Protista are single-celled organisms with well-defined nucleus and closed in a nuclear membrane. Second, they have pseudopodia or hair-like cilia or whip-like flagella for locomotion. Student, what is the second characteristic saying us? What does locomotion means? For moving from one place to another, various organisms of kingdom Protista have different structures. Some move with pseudopodia. The locomotory organ in amoeba is pseudopodia. And in some organism, they have hair-like cilia which helps the organism to move from one place to another. In some organism, that is Euglena, it has a whip-like flagella. That flagella helps the organism to move from one place to another. The third characteristics of kingdom Protista is they are autotrophs and also heterotrophs. Some of the organisms are autotrophs and they are Euglena, Volvox, etc. And some organisms are heterotrophs. They are amoeba and paramecium. Autotroph means those organisms which prepare their own food and heterotrophs that are dependent on others for their food. Now students, let's see the picture of each organism of kingdom Protista. Here are some examples of kingdom Protista. The first one you can see is Volvox and Volvox is an autotroph. Second, Paramecium. Paramecium is a heterotroph and it moves through cilia, hair-like structure. Its locomotory organ is hair-like structure known as cilia. Third one is Euglena. Euglena is an organism which is autotroph and its locomotory organ is a whip-like flagella. The fourth one is amoeba. Amoeba is a heterotroph and its locomotory organ is pseudopodia. So students, here were some examples of organisms from kingdom Protista. Moving to the third kingdom, that is kingdom fungi. What is the activity over here? Take a moist piece of bread or bhakri and keep it in a container with lid for 2-3 days. What we have to do, student? We have to take a piece of bread and sprinkle water on it. That is, we have to make the piece of bread moist. And after we moist the bread, keep it in a container with lid. Close the lid tightly of the container and keep it for 2-3 days. After 2-3 days, what happens, students? When we open the lid, we can see a fine cotton thread like tuft is found growing on the surface of the bread. We can see the entire bread has become black. And what is that black thing, student? It is the tuft of fine cotton, and that's nothing but all fungus have grown on the bread. We have to prepare a temporary mount of few threads from this culture and observe it. We have to take that tuft from the bread and place it on a slide and then watch it, observe it under the microscope. You can observe a clear picture of fungi is seen. And students, you can see in the image how it looks. Now let's learn the characteristics of kingdom fungi. First one, these are non-green eukaryotic heterotrophic organisms. Second, most of them are saprotrophs. And what does saprotrophs mean, students? They feed on dead organisms, are known as saprotrophs, and the mode of nutrition is known as saprotrophic. So most of them are saprotrophs, that is, they feed upon decaying organic matter. Third one, their cell wall is made up of tough and complex sugar called chitin. What is cell wall, students? Cell wall is the outermost layer of the cell and it is protective in function. It protects all the inner layers and all the inner organs of a cell. Fourth characteristic is some fungi are thread-like and many nuclei are present in the cytoplasm. Some fungi are in thread-like manner. They look like thread and they have many nuclei present in their cytoplasm. Examples of some fungi are baker's yeast. Aspergillus, that is fungus on corn, is said as aspergillus, penicillium, and mushroom. Students, mushrooms is a very common fungi. You all maybe have heard it. Here are some pictures of different fungi. So students, in our today's lecture, we have learnt about characteristics of different